Hello.
Good day, good evening, greetings. We looking real clear. We sounding good, looking good.
Yes. Oh.
Hey, let's pause there real quick. Okay.
There we go.
For sure.
Nice.
For sure. What's good? What it do? What's poppin'? Bonnie Devine, looking fine.
Thank you.
As always. King Eugene in the building. Let's get it.
Let's do it.
So, this is one of our favorite topics to talk about as well.
Yes, it is.
Relationships.
Relationships.
Something that can be very difficult,
It can be.
challenging at times,
Yes.
also very rewarding and
Yeah.
justifying when done correctly. So, we're going to talk about our top 5 ways
Yes.
to strengthen relationships based off of our experiences and what we've been through.
Yes.
And we'll also talk about the top 5 reasons we believe couples break up
Yes, we will.
and why that is. So, there's a lot of couples, a lot of people giving advice, relationship advice. It's important to remember nobody's an expert. Nobody has all the answers.
Nope.
Situations can vary from situation to situation.
Yes.
But you probably will not find another couple that is willing to be as transparent with the things that we've been through,
Right.
that we've grown through,
Yes.
and that we're also still growing through
Yes.
than we are.
Yes.
And that is because we do talk about our issues,
We do.
problems, wants, interests, and needs. So it makes it easy in settings like this
It does.
to do so.
It does.
So let's go ahead and get started with the top 5 ways to strengthen relationships.
Strong. Okay.
Number 1.
Number 1, we have self-love and self-care. So this is really, really important because I feel like sometimes we want our significant other to make changes or do something different or XYZ. But a lot of times it's important for us to work on ourselves. We can point the finger all day, at other people, but it really comes down to us and our actions. And when you take care of yourself and you pour into yourself, you're able to show up your best, and dealing with those things that you may be dealing with that your spouse may not be able to help you out with. So it's really important to have that self-love and self-care for yourself so you can show up the best in your relationship, okay? It's really important. And it's something that I wish I would have implemented more before we got into a relationship with each other, because I think it would have helped, certain situations that were a struggle for us, just taking better care of myself, and vice versa. So, that's why I think self-love and self-care is very important.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. One thing that I feel like a lot of us don't really address or pay attention to, it's not my wife's job to make sure that I love myself. Now, of course, she should help with that and, help with the environment of creating that and providing that. But it's my job to make sure that I love myself and to do things to take care of myself in that relationship that I have with myself.
Yes.
It's not even fair for me to expect you to make me love myself.
Yeah.
When it's something that I gotta, dig deep and understand who I am. Things like praying,
Yes.
working out,
Yes.
taking the time to relax and spend time with yourself, your thoughts, allowing yourself to feel,
Yes.
to be a person and just talk about the things that you're going through.
Yes.
We're all going through something. And if you're not in a place, in a space where you can talk to your partner about what you're going through, that lets you know there's some work to do.
Yes.
So you definitely want to make sure you're good.
I agree.
If I'm not good, how can I expect us to be good?
Yes.
So you got to put in work on yourself as well, the relationship as a total.
I agree. And even, when we get into arguments, I feel like, it's an opportunity for us to work on ourselves. It's an opportunity for us to separate from one another, pour into ourselves, recognize the things that we can work on, you know. I like going back to, we shouldn't point the finger at the other person. Let's go back to us and giving ourselves that love and seeing where we could have done better in that argument or challenging situation that we have. So really important. And like my husband said, prayer. I think prayer is definitely important as well when you're in a relationship. And it can only strengthen each other because it has definitely strengthened us. We've came a very long way, not to brag or anything like that, but we've came a long way.
Definitely. A lot of mistakes that
Yes.
we've grown through.
And hello to everyone that is joining. Pretty Divine Energy, Nene Slay.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you.
Sidhan, I'm sorry if I'm saying the names wrong, but welcome to the live.
If you have anything to add, please feel free to do so.
Yes.
The next one, first was self-love, self-care, definitely needed. Second one.
Second one is open communication and understanding. Communication is just so important. It is so important. If we don't have open communication with each other, it's going to be hard. It really is. We're going to have misunderstandings, and that's why it's important to talk about maybe things that you're going through, maybe challenges, money situations or a challenging situation that happened in front of a group of people. I mean, it gets real, and we have to have these open conversations and be honest with each other, and understand, sometimes we want to not listen and cut the other person off, and so it's important that we take that time to truly understand what our spouse is saying.
Couldn't have said it any better. A lot of times we just want to get our point across, but when we take that time to actually listen to what our partner is saying, a lot of times we're saying the same thing, but in different ways. Mm-hmm. So it's important to take that time to really understand each other as you're communicating. So that's pretty straightforward. The more you work on it, the better you get at it.
Yes.
And it gets stronger from there. So number three.
Number three is boundaries. Setting boundaries are very important as well, especially when you have people trying to come into your relationship and tell you how to work your relationship. You have to set boundaries. Certain people may say, oh, you need to do this or that. Like, just because they say that doesn't mean that you need to listen to them, and you need to speak to those people as well. It could be family members, it could be friends, and set that boundary. Like, I don't accept you to try to tell me what to do in my marriage, and also boundaries within the relationship as well. We have to have boundaries and talk about the challenging things that may arise, things that, okay, are we going to accept this? Are we not going to accept this? And talk that through, which goes to open communication as well.
Right. And it's important to make sure you and your partner are in agreement with your boundaries.
Right.
That you have set within a relationship, as well as the boundaries for those outside of the relationship.
Yes.
Make sure you guys are in agreement, and as well as the people, your friends,
yes.
the people that you have the boundaries for. Make sure they understand the boundaries and don't just flip out on them the first time they cross the boundary without even knowing that there were boundaries there.
Right.
So be willing to talk about your boundaries with those that you love.
Yes.
It will strengthen your relationship for sure.
It will.
Number 4.
Oh. Accountability and forgiveness. We have to be accountable for our own actions. We have to acknowledge when we are in the wrong. Again, I think a lot of times we like to point the finger at other people and say that they should have done X, Y, Z. But we need to take a step back and ask ourselves, what could we have done different in this scenario? And take accountability for those things. And forgiveness. That's a huge one too. Number 1, to forgive yourself for doing certain things, because we may have messed up in the relationship, did something wrong, and then we could beat ourselves up, and that's not healthy. So we have to forgive ourselves. And then when our spouse does something, that we may not like or love or whatever, it's important to forgive that person, have that conversation. I have to have the conversation with my husband. And forgive them, because if we're holding on to anger and frustration, it's going to show up more so in our relationship. But when we're accountable for our actions, and when we come with a forgiving heart, we can move forward, and that anger can be removed and be replaced with, vulnerability and love.
Yes, yes, I agree with all of that. Um, it's hard to forgive someone when they don't take accountability of what's been done. You know, you don't want to have to keep forgiving someone for the same act over and over.
Right.
So there has to be some accountability that comes with it so you can grow from the situation and not be taken advantage of.
I agree.
So, number 5.
Trying new things and dating. You want to keep the relationship spicy.
As much as possible.
Yes, you want to keep it spicy, and so it's good to go out, maybe to a new restaurant, or maybe go into a cave. Like, me and my husband did that for our anniversary. We've never went inside a cave, but it makes the relationship fun, to try new things with your significant other that you've never done before. Keep it spicy, keep it juicy.
It's so easy to get stuck on autopilot, doing the same things, getting stuck into a routine. And then, come on now, routines get boring after a while.
Yes.
You don't want your relationship to get boring.
Right.
After a while.
Right.
At all. So you definitely want to try new things, spice things up, try things that you probably never would have tried before.
Yes.
And just see how that goes. So, those are some ways to strengthen relationships.
Yes.
Now let's talk about our top reasons why relationships break up. So let's flip it. So, number 1, the number 1 reason we believe relationships break up is due to unresolved trauma. Things that we went through in our childhood that was never addressed in a healthy manner or was never addressed at all.
Right.
And just a few examples of those. So there's rejection trauma that a lot of us go through. Abandonment trauma that some of us go through. Betrayal trauma that some of us go through. Humiliation trauma that some of us go through.
Yes.
A lot of us carry these things in us, on us, and into relationships. And we wonder why we come in with certain demeanors or personality traits. Let's say I suffered with rejection trauma as a child. And every time she leaves to go somewhere, I just start kind of losing a little bit. I always want her around. I need to know where she's at. I need to know what's going on. If she didn't know that I dealt with something like that as a child, she may not understand why I may be coming off this way, or I may not understand why I'm coming off this way based off of something that I dealt with. So it's very important to really look at yourself, and see the things that you went through as a child that you still may be dealing with, that still may be affecting you more so than you think. And those are some of the things that can definitely play its part within relationships and make it deteriorate.
Pretty Divine Energy says, I didn't know y'all were going to be spitting and speaking truth like this, period.
We just getting started, girl. It gets real and it gets deep. And we're willing to talk about it because we done been through it.
Absolutely.
And we know that we all need some help from time to time, so it gets real. This is real.
It does. No, and when he was talking about, the rejection and, if he leaves, I feel like I deal with that to a certain extent, and it's something that I'm working on, and that's why it's important that we work on ourselves, because we all carry some type of traumatic experience when we were younger. And that's why it's so important to work on ourselves and consistently give ourselves self-love, because it can show up in the relationship. It can cause some friction, it can cause some unnecessary arguments. It can stir things up. So that's why it's important, to work on our childhood traumas. If you need to see a therapist,
Right.
Do what you need to do to help heal from those traumatic experiences, and be transparent with your partner about those traumatic experiences as well, so you can both communicate to work through those things and encourage each other some way, somehow.
And that is something we do. I haven't really seen a therapist in regards to, childhood or anything like that, but just being able to speak to my wife about any and everything that I have been through helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Helps a lot.
It does.
So, second reason, communication and understanding, or should we say a lack of communication and a lack of understanding.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to do anything as a unit when you're not on the same page,
Right.
when you're not working together,
Yeah.
when you're not understanding each other. And a lot of times it just goes to the basics. Just how you speak, the words that we use, the language, and just making sure that you guys speak as much as possible, understand as much as possible, and work through any barriers that you guys may have. You know, the
Yes.
way the differences how you grew up, differences how you see things. It's not a bad thing to see things in a different manner.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, how you go about working together to do so.
Right. We want to go about it in a healthy manner. And there was a saying, it lost me, so I'm not gonna say it right now. But communication and understanding is important. We want to take the time to understand our spouse, and learn their style of communication, because we have traumatic experiences. We were born and raised in different environments, and so that can affect the relationship, and to also have grace, to have grace in your relationship. I can say that my husband and I, we grew up in different types of households, and we have to find a way to communicate with each other that is respectful, that is loving, that is understanding. And it can be difficult, but we continue to work on it, continue to work on it. We want to have a conversation, not always to tell the person everything, but to listen to what they're saying and to be quiet sometimes. Sometimes we have to be quiet because we always have something to say.
This is true. This is true. This is very, very true. So, number 3, lack of respect, toxic behavior. So there's a lot of things that fall under the umbrella of that. Could be lying, cheating, abusive behavior in any type of way, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, any type of abuse.
Yes. It's a lot, it really is a lot. We want to respect our spouse, period. Like, we shouldn't be disrespecting our spouse. And if we are dealing with something, and we need to go get help, then go ahead and get help, because it shouldn't be tolerated in our relationships,
And a lot of times we not to cut you off, but
okay.
we see the toxic behavior, but we never go under to see why that may be so.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where it stems from, why that person behaves that way, what makes them react that way. And sometimes it can stem back to childhood or something that they may have been through or that they're going through currently.
Yes. And in no way, shape, or form are we saying that you should accept, that, like, if there's violence going on, you want to definitely separate yourself from that, seek help, things of that nature. But you want to do the things to help yourself with the toxic behaviors. It goes back to self-love and self-care. You want to show up your best in the relationship. So in order to do that, you have to give yourself self-love. You have to work on yourself. You have to become a better person for yourself and for the relationship.
Now, we're not saying any relationship that has any kind of toxic behavior you need to get out of. We still have toxic tendencies as well.
Right.
And our relationship was very toxic at a point in time.
Absolutely.
So you definitely can overcome anything within a relationship if you both are on the same page and are willing to communicate and understand and grow and know that, certain things are not to be tolerated anymore. So,
yes,
we're just pointing these things out, not saying these are relationship breakers or deal breakers. It's just certain things shouldn't be tolerated within relationships.
Agree.
So, number 4, unhealthy influences. Could be people, places, things, anything in between.
And that's, we have to make sure that we are conscious of the people that we are around, because we can get unhealthy habits from the people that we're around, the relationships that we're around. Like, if it's a violent relationship, if it's a wife, cussing the husband out, we might say, oh, well, we can do that too, because I do that all the time, or even thinking about, like, our families. Like, if our families are acting a certain way, and they're fighting each other and they're cussing each other out, we can get those traits, and not even acknowledge it and think that it's normal. So it is important to, assess the people that are around you, and be wise and make wise decisions. And if you feel like they're toxic and they're just not healthy, then cut them off. There's nothing wrong with that, because it will help your relationship at the end of the day. And we want to strengthen the relationship. We don't want to get these toxic traits and then add it into our relationship.
Definitely. Got to be aware of who's around, what type of energy and influence they are bringing to you in your relationship. And if it's more negative than positive, you need to address it immediately, whether that's removing yourself or, letting them know how things can change and things of that manner.
Right.
Number 5 is giving up. It's easy to quit. Sometimes it looks better on the other side of that fence. Sometimes it just seems like all the other relationships ain't going through nothing. It just seems like there's just perfect rainbows, happiness, and all that good stuff. And y'all over here arguing and on different pages and not understanding each other. But keep in mind, it's happening within every relationship, So you gotta, now, don't get me wrong, there is a line. If it's just too toxic, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta do what's best for you, and you gotta know what's best for you when it comes to that self-care, that self-love. If somebody is getting to the point to where they're interfering with your self-love and self-care, or how you go about your life, or where you want to be, the energy that you want to create, you gotta do what's best for you and not allow anyone to deteriorate that.
Yes.
Or to influence it in a negative way.
I agree. And every relationship is different. You have to move accordingly, and it doesn't mean giving up is always the answer. Maybe it's, taking some space, you two just taking some space for yourself and, working on yourselves again, giving yourself self-love and self-care, and then coming together, But I feel like in the times that challenges arise, and both parties are in agreement to work it out, you strengthen your relationship so much, in ways that I can't even explain. Because honestly, there were plenty of times that my husband and I could have given up, and just said, forget this,
It's not worth it. It ain't worth it. We don't see it going nowhere. Things of that nature.
We see differently in this aspect, but I feel like because of our perseverance and, having these conversations, and sometimes it's not always pretty, like sometimes it's really not, but, us working through that and not just giving up and not just packing our bags and leaving, has really strengthened our relationship and has made us stronger. And it just shows you that you can work through things, you can grow through things, you can change, it's just up to us individually and collectively, to make that decision for ourselves.
Couldn't have said it any better. You can get through pretty much anything within a relationship if you two are on one accord. I like what you said there, pretty divine energy. You manifest that you and your boyfriend start thinking like a marriage, like a team, like a union.
Yes.
I love that, because before we were married, the church we were going to tried to put us in the singles ministry. And we was like, nah, we not single.
Right.
Like, it may not be no title, no ring on it right now, but we are not single.
Right.
This is something that is going to last. We together. We already had that marriage mindset that we not breaking up. We're not giving up type of mindset before we got married. So you don't want to go into the marriage like kind of on the fence, or, trying to work things out that you could have already worked out in the dating, getting to know each other phase.
Yes.
A lot of times we skip that phase and get straight to the dating, and then have to learn our mates as we're dating, as we're together, instead of really taking that time to get to know each other or get to know ourselves as well.
It's important to learn ourselves. Like, I think it's just really, really important to know who you are, pour into yourself. If you're not married, take some time to figure out who you are. What are your non-negotiable? What are your boundaries? What are your standards, before getting into the relationship? Because once you get into the relationship, you are now dealing with all of everything that I've learned and grown up with, and I'm applying that into this marriage. So keep that in mind before being in a relationship. And if your relationship, it's possible, to keep striving and bettering yourself and your marriage. And don't give up, because it's possible to have a flourishing marriage.
If it's worth fighting for, keep fighting for it.
Yes.
Enough said. So, those are our top reasons couples break up, our top ways to strengthen relationships. Hope that you got something from it.
Yes.
And on that note, we out of here. 3G, give it God glory. We out.
Also, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube.
God is not a church.
God is not a church.
We out.
Okay, bye.
Money Divine. We out. King Eugene. We out.
Okay.
Appreciate you. We out.
Okay, we're out.